what once seemed like a loss, may eventually become a lesson. A loss can leave an empty space in your life, but sometimes that space gives you room to discover something you never would have noticed before. Point 1. When a familiar chapter ends. It is natural to miss what came before, but missing something does not mean you have to remain trapped in the past. You can appreciate what it gave you, while still making room for something new. As we grow older, this can become especially important. Life changes in ways we cannot always predict. A career may end, children may become independent, friendships may change, or familiar routines may no longer fit the person we have become. It is perfectly reasonable to feel sadness about those changes. Accepting change does not mean pretending that it never hurt. It means recognizing that something can be valuable. Even after it has ended, the memories you have made can remain part of your life without becoming a reason to stop living in the present. Sometimes the best way to honor the past is to carry its lessons forward rather than constantly trying to recreate it. Point 2. The past can teach you what mattered, what went wrong, and what you would do differently, but its greatest value may be the wisdom it gives you for making better choices today. Every person has decisions they would change if given another opportunity. Perhaps you would have spent more time with your family, taking better care of your health, worried less about other people's opinions, or made more time for things that genuinely mattered. But looking back should not become a punishment. You cannot change what happened decades ago. What you can do is allow those experiences to influence the choices you make now. If the past taught you that relationships matter, give more attention to the people you love today. If it taught you that health should not be ignored, start taking reasonable steps to care for yourself. If it taught you that life is unpredictable, perhaps stop postponing every meaningful experience. The value of experience is not simply remembering what happened. It is using what you learned to live differently. Point 3. Another painful truth is that some things will never return to exactly the way they were. This can be difficult to accept because familiarity feels safe. We naturally become attached to places, routines, people, and periods of life that gave us comfort. But life is constantly changing. The body changes. Families change, friendships change, responsibilities change. Even our own interests and priorities can change. Trying to keep everything exactly as it was can create unnecessary frustration because change is a normal part of life. Instead, it can be healthier to ask yourself what you can preserve and what you need to adapt. Maybe you cannot bring back an old routine, but you can create a new one. Maybe you cannot return to an old friendship, but you can invest in relationships that are still present. Maybe you cannot have the same physical abilities you had decades ago, but you can still focus on appropriate movement strength. Balance and activities that support your independence. Accepting change does not mean giving up. It means learning how to move forward without constantly fighting reality. Point 4. One of the most important lessons that loss can teach us is gratitude for what remains. It is easy to focus on what has disappeared. We notice the person who is no longer around, the job that ended, the energy we once had, or the opportunities that passed. But if we spend all our attention on what is gone, we can overlook what is still in front of us. There may still be people who care about you. There may still be conversations you can have, places you can visit, books you can read, hobbies you can explore, and experiences you can share. Even ordinary things can become meaningful when we learn to notice them. A quiet morning, a walk outside, a meal with someone you love, or a phone call with an old friend may not seem extraordinary, but life is often made meaningful by ordinary moments repeated over time. Gratitude does not require pretending that everything is perfect. It simply means recognizing that alongside the things you have lost, there are still things worth appreciating. Point 5. Sometimes losing something also teaches you that your identity is bigger than one part of your life. For years, you may have been known as a worker, a parent, a spouse, a provider, or a person with certain responsibilities. When one of those roles changes, it can feel as though you have lost part of yourself. But you are more than any single role. You are still capable of learning, connecting with others, helping people, developing interests, and creating meaningful experiences. Point 6, another lesson is that you do not have to replace every loss immediately. When something disappears, the instinct may be to fill the empty space as quickly as possible. But sometimes that space needs time. It can give you an opportunity to reflect on what you actually want. Rather than simply returning to the same routine, a quieter period can sometimes help you discover interests, priorities, or relationships that were overlooked when life was moving too quickly. Point 7. There is also a painful truth about relationships. Not every relationship will remain the same throughout your entire life. Some friendships last for decades. Others naturally become more distant as circumstances change. People move. Careers change. Families grow and priorities develop in different directions. Sometimes a relationship ends because of conflict. Other times there is no dramatic reason at all. Two people simply become different from who they once were. That can hurt, especially when you remember how close you once were. But a relationship changing does not mean that the years you shared were meaningless. A friendship can have been genuine and valuable, even if it does not continue forever. Instead of measuring every relationship by how long it lasts, it may be more helpful to appreciate what it contributed while it was part of your life. And if there are relationships that still matter, do not assume they will take care of themselves. Make time for people. Ask how they are doing. Listen. Share a meal. Make the phone call. Small efforts can help maintain meaningful connections, especially as life becomes more complicated. Point 8, another lesson is that you cannot always control what happens, but you can influence how you respond. This distinction becomes increasingly important with age. You cannot control every change in your health. You cannot control other people's choices. You cannot prevent every disappointment. You cannot make time move backwards. But you can often control some of your responses. You can seek appropriate medical care when you have concerns. You can maintain healthy habits within your abilities. You can choose to communicate rather than remain silent. You can ask for help when something becomes difficult. You can decide where to place your attention. This does not mean that every difficult situation can be solved simply by having a positive attitude. Some losses are genuinely painful, some circumstances are unfair, and some problems require professional, practical, or medical support. But recognizing what is within your influence can prevent you from spending all your energy fighting things that cannot be changed. Sometimes peace begins when we stop asking, "How do I make this past disappear?" and start asking, "What can I do with my life now?" The past may have taken some things from you, but it may also have taught you what truly matters. You cannot change what is gone, but you can choose what you do with what remains. And sometimes, that is where a better chapter begins.